Okay, so today we have a guest speaker, Connor LaRock, who's a motivational speaker. He'll be talking to you for this period. I ask that you be respectful during the presentation. Please turn your cell phones off. If I see anyone using their cell phone or being disrespectful during the presentation, you will leave with one of us and we'll give you work. Okay? We'll escort you to the office. Okay, so you'd rather be in this awesome presentation because I've heard from the other classes that it was great. And so we decided to have him back for some more, to inspire more Lancer students.
Thank you guys, thanks for having me here. There we go, started off just like that. Okay, I want to start off here today. I think you guys all probably will appreciate this. Let's start off by doing some quadratics, like some mathematic problems. How does that sound? All right, no. Let's get serious, okay? My name is Connor LaRock. I'm a 22-year-old law and commerce student at Laurentian, a soon-to-be two-time author, and a national level Muay Thai kickboxer. So today I'm here to speak to you guys about building an indestructible mindset that's not only going to affect the way you make decisions, but it'll also help you with getting motivated. So, all right. We'll keep those till later. Okay, so when it comes to motivation, there's two variables that come into play. There's internal and external motives. Have you ever had a time in your life where, let's say you're driving in a car, maybe laying on the couch, all of a sudden, bang, something hits you, and it was almost as if you drank a pot of coffee? Well, what exactly was it that put you into that state? Was it music, something external? Or maybe it was something internal. Maybe you thought about someone you really liked and that kind of jacked you up and put you into this very excited state. Either that or maybe someone put a gun to your head and said, hey, let's rock and roll. So whatever it was, it enhanced your mood. I want to show you guys something here. So we'll call this my physiology. You can watch like my body language, my body posture. A lot of you guys probably woke up this morning thinking, ugh, I gotta go to school. Or, I gotta go to work tonight. Or I'm alive, you guys. You're just kind of dragged down. So watch, I'm gonna use the exact same vocabulary, but with different physiology. So let's say you woke up in the morning, you're like, yeah, I gotta go to school, I gotta go to work, I gotta do this, opposed to kind of like dragged down state. Think about it, I use the exact same vocabulary, but with a different physiology. I wanna ask you something. So what do you think would happen for, let's say, for 2 weeks straight, give me a subject you guys absolutely hate. I get the same answer in every single class I've been. So let's take a subject like math. So for 2 weeks straight, every single day you're going, yeah, math. You're getting excited for math. What do you think is gonna happen at the end of those 2 weeks? The next time you think about math, you'll put yourself right into that excited state. It's kind of funny. We call that conditioning in psychology. I just call it programming, how to program yourself. So how this all goes back to motivation, mindset, all this other stuff I'm kind of talking about is, I want to show you two individuals. So let's say you have two people. You probably all know people that are similar to this. Let's say on one side I tell someone, I'm like, this is impossible. The person right away says, well, this is impossible. I don't think I'll ever be able to do that. Whereas the other person, you're like, this is impossible. Person sparks right up. They're like, that's not impossible and I'm here to show you why. What is the difference between those two people? Anyone got an answer? What would be the difference? Motivation. Similar motivation. It's their attitude, their perception, their mindset, which is different. So mindset is the basis of this whole presentation. It all ties in with decision making too. So I want to give you guys an example here. I want to bring it back for a second. I'm a little bit extreme in my examples, but for a good reason. It's going to show you that when an incentive is high enough to achieve a certain task, you'll find the strength. So let's take, for instance, like you guys have all had days. Let's say you either go to the gym or you work and you're like, oh, I work a 12-hour day. I'm completely exhausted. I have nothing left. I'm like, really? You have nothing left? You're like, yeah, I couldn't do anything else. But then I slip you $100. I was like, can you work for another hour? Right away, you're going to be like, okay, yeah, maybe I can work for another hour. Or let's say you're working out in the gym. You completely give it everything you have, or during school, you give it everything you have, and you're like, no, I have nothing left. But then all of a sudden, your idol walks through the door. You'd spark right back up. You'd be able to keep going. So what I'm trying to show you guys is that there's this hidden resource within your mind that a lot of the time, we think we have to be put into these like extreme situations to unlock that hidden resource to get motivated. That's absolutely incorrect. So I want to give you guys two examples here. So imagine you're on a battlefield fighting in war. Bodies are flying, People are dying. If you don't continue to keep on running, that's it. You're gonna die. The second example, let's say you're by a cliff, you blow a tire, your leg gives out, you're hanging off that cliff. If you don't pull yourself up, that's it, game over, you're gonna die. In both of these examples, you would in fact find the strength. So what I'm trying to point to, guys, is that it goes back to this idea that there is this hidden power inside your mind. And it sounds funny, right? You're like, oh, this hidden power, but initially what happens is we cut ourselves short. We sit back and we think, oh, I don't have enough there, unless you get put into that situation where you're back against the wall where it's absolutely false. It's not true. You can just learn to program yourself. And this all comes through conditioning. In psychology, you call it conditioning. I call it programming. And how you program yourself, it's very simple. So let's say you go home tonight, and as soon as your parents say something to you, you're like, go clean your room. You're like, right away, you're reactive. You charge right out. You're like, no, I'm not cleaning my room. That's how you're programmed. Right away, you charge at them, opposed to saying, okay, maybe I'll do that. Or let's say your teacher says something to you, and then all of a sudden you're like, well, you fight back right away, opposed to just agreeing with that person. So this all has to do with conditioning, and I'm going to go into a deeper explanation of this in a minute. But how you program yourself, it goes back to the idea of constant repetition. So you take that subject you hate, something like math, and then imagine you keep, like, let's say for 2 weeks I told you, you get excited, you're like, math. At the end of those 2 weeks, you're going to all of a sudden think about math and put yourself into that state. I want to bring this back into my life a little bit, so you guys get a little bit of background so we can relate a little bit. I lived by a metaphor, like kind of an analogy growing up when I was in your seats. You got to remember, I'm not too far off from you guys, only 22. I lived by a metaphor thinking that things just happen. You just wake up every day, things just happen, right? We're not really in control of very much. You just think it happens, right? So when I was 17 years old, I fought in the biggest kickboxing tournament in Canada, the national championships, okay? Here I was, there was a title belt on the line, and I was a little bit cocky at the time, thinking, oh, I'm just going to barely train for this fight. The kid was younger than me at the time, and I go in there and just take the belt home. First 15 seconds of the fight, because I didn't train, I made an amateur mistake, dropped my hand, bang, went flying into the ropes. To this day, I don't remember walking back to the dressing room, all because of one minor miscalculation. Literally, I could have trained for that, and if I would have been smart, I would have bring my hand back. But just because I was just thinking, oh, whatever, things just happen, right? That's what happened. It carried over until the following year. I was training with a professional athlete. This guy had arms this size of my head, literally pro boxer, 6'2", bald head. The guy was scary, right? And I was kicking, I'm a kickboxer, this guy's a boxer, and I'm kicking his leg, I'm having a good laugh. Clearly the guy wasn't having a good time, because I kicked his leg one last time to find out that I was waking up on the canvas. I was laying there, I was just, all of a sudden, 2 weeks later, the guy told me he knocked me unconscious. All because of, once again, a minor miscalculation that I had absolute control over. But once, like, think about this for a second. I was telling you guys, I was living by this mindset that things just happen, right? That same exact year when I was sitting in your seats in grade 12, I had a 65 average. I was taking university courses, I was taking some college courses, but I had a 65 average, figuring that things just happen, I'll just get into university. Guess what happened? All my friends went off to university, and because I was 2% short of getting in on probation to Laurentian, I didn't get in. So what happened? I stuck working a minimum wage job that whole year, watching them all off telling me their great stories about, oh, university, this, and that. So I sat there feeling sorry for myself. And that same exact year that I didn't get into university, my parents divorced. So like the world was just crashing down on me, and I'm trying to sit here, and what our brain tries to do is make connections, right? And my brain in all these instances is trying to put the pieces of the puzzle together until I came to one justifiable conclusion. It's that the choices you will all make today will dictate your futures. You will never be able to go back into a moment because nothing will last forever. So once I kind of realized that, I stepped back for a second and I was like, holy crap. All of those instances, except for my parents divorcing, that was kind of external. Everything else was internal. I was in absolute control of my mind, what I was going to do in that situation, how I was going to react. Yet I just thought, okay, things just happen. I'm in minimal control, when really I was in absolute control of everything. So this whole presentation here, when I get into the practical aspect of it, this is going to all it's based on is decision making, how to make effective decisions, how to back it up, like strategy backed with execution. I want to bring this back into a light that you guys probably will relate to. So we take celebrities, for instance, okay? We put these people up to godlike statuses. We're like, oh my God, they're a celebrity. They're like a god to me. Like Kim Kardashian right now could go post something on Instagram, and then she's like, buy this lipstick. And everyone's like, I want to be like Kim Kardashian, like some of these young girls, right? And then all of a sudden, she makes a ton of sales on some crappy product. Now that's power. But what I'm trying to refer to here, so you guys get this in the right context, is we'll take people, for instance, let's take Bill Gates, Sidney Crosby. Give me some names of some really high-end celebrities. Anyone got any names? Yeah? Justin, yeah, exactly. No, there we go. No, Justin Bieber. So the general analogy people will use is they're like, well, these people got lucky. They always come back to this idea that they got lucky for doing this, and that. Well, so look at someone like Bill Gates. You think he just got lucky? Do you think he worked really hard to get what he had? Do you think he had a strategy and an execution plan to get where he was, or do you think he just got lucky? Or Steve Jobs, Sidney Crosby, Michael Jordan, LeBron James. Let's just bring up a couple names like of these big stars. Even Justin Bieber had a plan when he had his YouTube videos. There was a ton of stuff. So I'm trying to point to you guys, like a lot of time people are going to use this excuse that it's like they got lucky. But it's until we step behind the blinders that we kind of realize that these people didn't get lucky. So what I'm trying to point to the fact is that don't ever look at someone like one of these celebrities and let someone use that excuse that they got lucky, because what happens a lot of times is someone will kind of be frustrated. They're like, this person got lucky, and they'll just stop right there. Like, I'll never be able to amount to something. But what you're going to discover as you become older is that every person that's successful, doesn't matter who it is, every person in general is no different than you and I. Did they not have a brain, body, bleed, and breathe? So the question I try to ask myself, something that's driven me for the last few years is, well, what exactly is it that separates people that are successful in, i.e., society's eyes, opposed to those who fail or learn, right? And this is the whole basis coming back to this presentation. It's a lot of information, but really that was the question I asked myself. I said, well, what is it that separates them? And what I've found in my research is that it's strategy backed with execution and persistence. Because what happens, you look at these same success stories, they're all the same premise. Just fill in the holes, right? It's like this person went through massive adversity, everyone told them they couldn't, they're crazy, and then all of a sudden they persevered. It's weird. It's actually, if you look at any success story, it follows a similar context. They're like, then they persevere, and then they're looked at as a genius. You know what I mean? It's kind of funny how history repeats itself like that. So going into this presentation, if I can leave you with anything important, it's that if someone has something that you want, why can't you have it? Ask yourself that question. So my presentation, this is all just so you guys get in kind of like an analytical sense here. It all follows decision making. You'll see how everything in this presentation intertwines with your mind. How you make decisions, how if you're going to make them effective, whether you believe it's conscious or unconscious, whether you're kind of aware of whether or not you're making decisions. So my presentation, unlocking the mind, the awakening to the unlimited potential that burns within you. I know that sounds heavy, but really no, it's a lot simpler than you think. So right off the bat, producing results. Just this first quote I put up here is, the barrier to the success you will see within this lifetime is decided upon whether you beat the battle between you and yourself. We're going to go back to that, but I just want to start off with this. So I want to ask you guys 3 questions, okay? And these 3 questions, what they're going to do is show you that you are in full control of your mind right now, okay? Whether or not you're aware of it or not. So the first one being, whether or not you wanted to get out of bed this morning, whether or not your mom just grabbed you, threw you out of bed, threw you in the shower, was it not you in full control when you woke up this morning and said, damn, I don't want to get up? Was that not your brain thinking it? Was it not you in full control of that? Think about it. Was it not you? It was. Or once you go home tonight, because I know you guys are all going to be peppering your homework, right? Doing your homework, getting it all done out of the way. I know that's how students work, right? Whether or not you want to, is it not you that chooses whether you want to sit on Instagram for the next 3 hours, or Facebook, or maybe search YouTube? Rather than research, maybe do something, read a book that's interesting to you, or something that you enjoy, or go train. Is it not you in full control of that? Absolutely. The last one is, right in this moment, whether you're focusing on me or not, is it not you choosing what's going through your mind, whether or not you want to take my information and use it, or just kind of say, who is this guy? Think about it. I'll say, like, let me just say a word, banana, bang. Whatever you think of a banana in your mind, it pops up. Or I say steak, and it pops in your head. It just goes to show you, you're in full control. Okay. I know, it sounds funny, right? But going back to this idea. So going back to the idea, I said the only person ever going to stop you is yourself. Think about it. At the end of the day, if it's you getting yourself out of bed, whether your mom's helping you, whether your dad's helping you, whether everyone's telling you what to do, is it not, it's you that's the one that has to produce the results. At the end of the day, you're going to know whether you did it or not, whether you gave it everything, or whether you're kind of like, wow, the teacher thinks I'm awesome, but I gave it like a 50% effort. So I put you. So you is the person that when you go home tonight, you be yourself. When no one's watching, you're doing stupid things, saying stupid things. That's yourself. So it's the unlimited potential, no boundaries, creative, subjective. It's more than what's just seen on the surface. The self. So the self is the person when you're going into a job interview, or let's say you're going to meet someone that you kind of see them as important. You're like, yeah, I have like an 80% average. That's that person. The person that's supposed to be subjected in society, okay? So I put it's the rational being, lives out of the five senses, logical. I call it the stop sign because if you're always going to act within that boundary within yourself, you're right away, you're putting up a border. You're not going to kind of let yourself go, let a little bit of your creativity go to see if people actually like it or not, right? So it's kind of, that's why you call it the stop sign. So leading into this, give me 1 second. So battlefield mentality. I designed this myself. This is my own psychological concept. I think you guys will appreciate this. As you get older, you're going to see how this kind of plays into everything I'm talking about. So battlefield mentality shows you that when an incentive is high enough to achieve a task, you will in fact find a way to achieve it. So go back to that idea where I told you guys, if you're like, I gave it everything, but then I say I'll give you $100, or okay, maybe I can go for an hour. If the incentive wasn't high enough for you to do that, you'd be like, no, give me $200, right? Or the same thing goes in a workout. If your idol comes in, or let's say you want to get into medical school, you know that if you get a certain mark, you will get in. You're going to have a high enough incentive. You will do it. So I put battlefield mentality as a psychological concept in which, or we use extreme examples. So go back to my battlefield mentality, right? You're like, I gave it everything, but then all of a sudden, like, well, what if you're in a battle? What if your life is on the line? You're going to find the strength. So it's there, is what I'm trying to show you. That is, it's inside of you right now, but it's whether or not you're going to use it. So it's a state of mind, a mindset we have access to allow us to get into a peak performance-like state. So you could be, let's say you're competing against someone, and all of a sudden you gave it everything, you're gassed, but then your girlfriend or your boyfriend walks in, and you're like, holy crap, I want to impress them. Goes into that state. It shows you it's there though, right? It's there. Just think about it. Okay, building confidence. This is very important for you guys because like we've all lacked confidence at some sort, and especially going through high school, you're scared of judgment. There's a number of factors that are going to kind of contribute to how your frame of mind, right? For me, I had absolutely no confidence in your seats. I had none. I was literally terrified of the world. My brother had bullied me every single day. He literally just degraded me, and I always had no confidence. I'd walk into places and just feel kind of worthless in a sense. I'd be like, I don't really have much to offer. And it was until I found martial arts. For me, I was an athlete. I played hockey, all this other stuff, but it never really gave me that boost. Martial arts was allowed me to kind of come out of myself and discover myself and give me confidence. So when it comes to confidence, the reason we lack confidence is because of inexperience. You might not be in a situation, so you might think to yourself, you're like, well, I don't know, I don't think I can do that. So let's say hockey as an example, since we're all Canadian. You might be like, I don't want to travel for that team, I might not make it. Well, what do you think is going to be better? Trying out for the team and getting cut, opposed to sitting there for the next 3 months saying, wow, I should have tried out. Or maybe not trying out a specific class because you think it's too hard rather than getting out. Getting out and doing it, or even if you get cut or you fail a class, it's better than sitting there playing the what if game. Your brain's just going to spin like an endless tire. Okay, so building confidence. So action, so I put, these are the two variables when it comes to building confidence. So action is the starting point to achievement. So it leads to results. It's followed by a decision. Action is the second, action is the second step on your journey. So it's what separates the doers from the talkers. The funny thing about the doers and talkers is I'm both. I like to tell people what I'm going to do so that when they watch it unveil, it puts this healthy pressure on me that, you know what, I have to back this up. I can't just go in there and just go claiming all this stuff with no results. Let's say on your resume, when you want to get a job, people are going to look at what you produced. What is your results? Teachers are going to look at your marks, what you produced. You can sit there and say, I am the greatest, but have nothing to back it. So then why would people buy into you, right? You have to have something that people will buy into you, right? Inaction. So inaction creates a battle in the mind. It's tension because go back to the hockey example, or maybe you don't want to take a class. You're going to sit there for the next few months saying to yourself, I really should have taken that class. I should have done this. I should have done that. So it leads to the what if. You're going to play the what if this happens, what if that. Leads to failure or a learning experience. It basically just halts progress because it's going to stop you from getting that extra boost. So decision making, the hidden secret. I'm just going to move this over here. This is one of the most important things. So you can have absolutely nothing in your life. Let's say you go bankrupt one day. The one thing you will have is your mind. your ability to make decisions and whether you're going to make them effectively or not, that is like one of your most important tools. You don't have to buy this. You can read as much free information online as you want to enhance your brain, or you can fill your brain with garbage. Decision making is one of the most important tools you have as an individual, which will separate you on the battlefield called life. But so decision making, the hidden secret. So internal, the things you can control, such as your attitude, your perception, your mindset, decision making. Like these are your whole internal inside of you. The external. So these get a little bit complicated, and it's kind of funny how this works. But things you cannot control. So you can't control the environment around you. You can't control whether there's going to be like an earthquake or something's going to just happen, like a tragedy in your life might happen one day. But the funny thing is, you can control how you react. So you might not be able to control what's going to happen in your class today, but you can control, let's say, if you want to give it everything, or whether you kind of want to just sit there and be a little bit lazy. You're in full control of that. Other people's actions. Here's the funny thing about this one too is, it's very difficult to control other people's actions, but you can kind of manipulate them in a bad sense that you can get someone very frustrated at you and they might want to punch you, or you can make someone very happy, maybe pass your smile on to them. That's the funny thing with that, but it's very inconclusive. It's very hard to keep those consistent with other people's actions. Certain circumstances, and then death and taxes. That's just a quote from Benjamin Franklin. It's not really funny, but it's there. All right. So hedonism psychology. I know it sounds like it's a really heavy concept when it's very basic actually. The battle between pain and pleasure. So all hedonism psychology is that in our lives, no matter what we do, we try to alleviate pain and maximize pleasure. I know it sounds funny, but think of a decision. Think about maybe why you didn't want to get out of bed this morning and come to school. You didn't want to endure the pain. Or maybe think about, let's say, why at night you want to eat garbage. You want to eat bad food while you watch TV because it brings you pleasure. Or maybe you want to text someone you like because that brings you pleasure. Or maybe you think about a breakup and it brings you pain, so you try to avoid thinking about that. Think about anything you've done just recently. These both coincide, pain and pleasure. These two variables affect every decision you make within your life. So how we rationalize? This one's a little bit of a complex concept, so I don't really get into this one a lot, but all this is the basis of sports psychology. So think about it. So thoughts, emotions, and actions, they all coincide together. The funny thing is, so the way I was taught by this world, like he's a national trainer or whatever, and he was telling me how, so a lot of time, like think about if you have really crappy thoughts. You're waking up this morning, you just feel really negative. Think about how that will be expressed in the emotion and your actions. You might be really like, oh, I don't really care. You just be walking around. But a lot of the time, it's funny. It's kind of this mix. You can take someone with depression, so they can be having very negative thoughts. Take someone like Robin Williams. On the outside, he's not too bad, so he's using these two other emotions, his actions and his emotions, to kind of bring them back up. You don't really see that though. You don't get to see what's inside their head. So this one's very difficult to work with, but the best thing is that it's usually one of these goes out of place. So you might have really negative thoughts, and what you'll try to do to bring that back up is try to express positive emotion and action. Try to just be like, as much as your brain's saying this sucks, you just kind of spark yourself up. And eventually what happens is you'll condition yourself to come back up. So state conditioning. This goes back to my whole basis of my presentation. So right now you guys might be in a lazy state. You might be in a state where you're like, who is this guy? Like, why am I listening to him? This is boring. Right? You could be in that state, or you could be in a peak state where you're very excited. So it's basically the mood you were in and how you feel. So going back to my example, like all of a sudden, let's say you're just really lazy, and then someone, like let's say you really like walks through the door, and all of a sudden you spark up, go into that kind of excited state. Think about how that works. Conditioning. All conditioning is in psychology. As you guys get older, you kind of start to see this more and often. Just programming. So whether or not you're programmed to react to someone, or whether or not you're always negative, maybe you're conditioned that every time someone says something to you, you do something, you know what I mean? You have like this weird smirk, or you do anything like that. Or you're conditioned at night that you want to watch TV and eat junk food. That's basically the basis one, or that you're conditioned that as soon as school's done, you turn on your phone and go on Facebook and scroll down that for an hour. You could be conditioned to do that. Think about how that kind of works. So the 5 pillars of fear, this is another psychology concept. I've designed this myself. I put these into different brackets. The first thing, you guys aren't going to like it here because this intertwines with every decision you make. You're going to hate this, but the only way you will ever beat a fear is to face it. And no one wants to hear that. They want to have like this magic secret. Well, how do I face this fear? Or how do I face this fear of talking to someone? It's all a rationalization, like the way you're going to kind of think about it. So fear of failure, for instance, you could be thinking like, well, what if I fail this test? What if I do this? What if I do that? Well, what if you pass that test? Like, what if all of a sudden, you know what I mean, you go in there, like you have to think of the other side of it. And that's the problem, is a lot of the time we're programmed, we're conditioned to think on the negative. It's like, well, what if I fail? I don't want to fail, I'll piss my dad off. So it goes back to this idea of constant repetition. So as soon as you think on something on the onslaught, it's like, what if I fail? It's like, well, no, what if I succeed? You can't just do it once. It's not going to work. If you just do something once, it's just going to be like, okay, I'm over it. But if you do it like, let's say multiple times, every time you're thinking of, what if I fail? You go on the other side, you're like, what if I succeed? What happens after a month of doing that? Next time you think about that, you'll think right on that context. It'll be second nature. You're not even going to think about the fear of failure. Fear of judgment. This is one of the most important ones. You guys all go through fear of judgment. You like right now, what if I were to pick up my phone and call my mom and say, I love you? You would all judge me. You'd all be like, oh, you can't do that. That's outside of the social norm. But really, that's this preconceived notion you have in your mind. What's wrong with that? What would be wrong with me doing that? Nothing. But the thing is, like inside our head, we'd be all embarrassed. We'd be like, oh my God, I step outside of the social norm. So it's the same thing. It's your focus point. The thing is, this is kind of weird, but the fear of judgment. So since it's one of the most important ones you guys all go through, you're like, well, what if I dress a certain way, this, and that? The way to beat this one, to kind of rationalize with yourself in your mind. So if you're scared of someone ever going to judge you, you have to think about it in the extreme so you crack out of that state. So you have to think about it in this context. So if you're like, well, this person's going to judge me, and then all of a sudden, let's say they bring you right down. Well, think about it. Would that person ever be at your funeral? Let alone would they ever cry? And what you're going to discover is that person's not even thinking about you really. You know what I mean? So and then all of a sudden you get all pent up on this emotion. They judge me. They bring me down. Why would you let someone who won't even be at your funeral, let alone cry, who even cares about you, bring you down to that level? And that's how you rationalize with that in your brain. And it goes back to the idea of constant repetition. After you do this consistently, what's going to happen? I know it sounds funny, but okay, going back to this, fear of uncertainty. So you might be uncertain, like let's say you guys don't want to go to college or university, or you don't know what. A lot of the time what I get with a lot of students, I work with a lot of different individuals, I work with businesses as well, and it's this uncertainty factor that you're like, well, what, I don't know, you guys are probably sitting here in the same seat, you really don't know what you want from your life, in the sense that what am I going to do career-wise? And I can tell you guys, there's numerous people in university, college, all over the place, they really don't know what they want out of life. So with fear of uncertainty, it's like, well, what if I do this and I absolutely hate it? Well, what if you do that? Let's say, what if you go to college and all of a sudden you meet the love of your life? Or what if you go do something unexpected and all of a sudden you meet a teacher that completely changes your life? So you just use the other side of it. It's not just about positive affirmation, saying positive things. No, it's about actually looking on it from a different lens. Fear of rejection. This is another really important one for you guys. You guys probably are scared. Sometimes you want to say something, you don't want to be rejected by your peers. And I can tell you something, you don't understand how many times I've been rejected. Even to get in these schools to come do these things, like I love doing these presentations. It took me literally, I went in last year to St. Ben's. I had called her, I made a bunch of calls, like tried like 8 times. She would not let me in. She wouldn't even email me back, the teacher. She's like, who are you? And I went to St. Ben's, right? And I said to myself, this year I'm gonna get into the schools. I have my whole presentation ready. I have my whole strategy ready to go in. I called like 4 times. She never called me back. Finally on the 4th time I called again. She ends up calling me back and saying, well, Connor, what do you want to come do? Like, we're not giving you the gym. We only do one big presentation a year. I was like, give me a chance. Give me a classroom to go speak in, and I'll show you why I can do this. So she sent out an email to all the teachers and then finally got in. But guess how many? It took me literally like 10 times before she finally let me in. I was rejected numerous times. I also work at a bank, and I do sales at the bank. And this kind of ties into what we're doing because it's all the same. It's rejection, right? I'm trying to offer certain things to customers, and then right away they reject you. And at first, you take it very personally. You're like, well, why are they rejecting you? And really, you'll sit back and you'll be like, okay, it's all just part of the process. So how to beat fear of rejection is you just got to think about it. Not everyone's going to like the same music as you. Not everyone's going to like the same way you dress. No matter what you do, people aren't always going to like you. And that's the thing. You always got to think about that and kind of rationalize with that in your brain. The last thing I put is fear of death. Death is the most potent motivator there is on the earth. Why? Because it shows you that there's only a limited amount of time. We express so much emotion in the term death that it kind of brings you back. You're like, well, I used to sit there and think, I'd count the days down until I thought how long my parents would live. or I used to sit down and say, well, what if I do this? I would kind of micromanage everything by this death factor. And then I stepped into a kickboxing ring, and then I was like, okay, wait, this is completely, it took me right out of that lens. But with death, you just got to realize it's a potent motivator. So maybe that's why you make that call at the end of the day. You call your parents and say, I appreciate this. It'll kind of give you that extra boost to rationalize with something in your mind. If you don't want to do something, think about, well, really, if I look back on this, would I really care? You know what I mean? So education. This is probably my most important slide. I'm going to tell you guys why. As you get older, this is really going to kind of come into context for you. So I put education, the vehicle for the creation of value. Value in this world equals significance. So you place value on money because you can buy things you want. Maybe you place value on someone you like because they're that much better to you than other people. So right off the bat, I want to start off by saying some of you may not like school or like to read, and I'm going to challenge that because I bet you don't like school or like to read because you have not read anything that really caught your attention or interested you, or maybe you haven't learned about a subject that got to you. That's why I would argue. That's why you probably don't want to continue on. I never read a book until I was 19. Okay, like I'd read my school text, you'd breeze through Shakespeare. No one wants to read Shakespeare at your age. Really, no one really, and maybe some girls do, but I don't know, a lot of people really don't. But some of you, so that's what I said, so some of you might not like it because it hasn't caught your attention really. And then I want to go into a really important example. So this is kind of funny. So my original plan was to go to law school. Like next year would be me, I'd be getting shipped off to go to law school, and I wanted to be a commercial lawyer, so I wanted to do business law. Okay, like I figured it. But the more I started to take law, like I'm a law student, the more I started to take law and I started to do case analysis, all this other stuff that intertwines, I'm like, God, is this ever dry? Like I cannot see myself going into a courtroom, okay? But the problem I see with most students, whether they be medical students, commerce students, so like business students, even people that are in accounting, and then law students, is they're all the same. And it sounds bad, but they all have the same marks. So we all have like an 80 average. I have an 80 average, they have an 80 average. We have to write a GMAT score, which is your entry score into law school. Everyone's got like a 159 or 160, and then everyone's part of the same law groups. So what do you think is going to happen when all of us, like we just breeze in, apply to law school, and you don't get to meet the people at the other end yet? Okay, so they're going to be flipping through your resumes. That person's the same. That person's the same. That person's the same. How can you create value with that if you're all the same, right? You have to have something that will distinguish you in this world. That's what will allow you to step out. And in terms of a paycheck, because that's why a lot of us want to go to work, the more value you create in the workplace, the more money you're going to make. It's that simple. That's why some people are CEOs, are the best decision makers. They may not be the best at math, they may not be the best at this, but they make the best decisions. That's why they create value to that company. So think about that. Literally, everyone is part of the same law groups. They have the same LSAT score, and then they have the same marks. So nothing's going to distinguish you. It's the same thing with medical school. Medical school is so competitive. Think about it. You need something that's going to distinguish you to let you in. Okay. Going back to that idea I was talking about earlier, strategy and systems, a synergy.